are listening to the 10 Questions with the Musical Mind podcast with your host, Peter Harris.
Hey everybody, Peter Harris here. Thanks for joining us again. This week, let's talk Sons of Apollo. Sons of Apollo, of course, is the prog supergroup consisting of Mike Portnoy on drums, Billy Sheehan on bass, Derek Sherinian on keyboards, Ron Bumblefoot Thal on guitar, and Jeff Scott Soto on vocals. Each one of these guys is at the pinnacle of their respective instruments. It is a supergroup of the highest caliber. So Sons of Apollo had their debut album, Psychotic Symphony, just a couple years ago. They are now due with their second album, entitled 2020, in Roman numerals, due out this month on the 17th, so coming up here just in a few days. I've heard the album. It is fantastic, as you would expect, full of just really good stuff. So this episode, I'm delighted to have Jeff Scott Soto call in. We discuss the making of the album, how it was recorded, how Jeff specifically juggled this with his busy schedule of Trans-Siberian Orchestra and his Soto band and other projects he has going on, and what their tour plans are and various other topics, both past and present. So it's a great conversation. I hope you enjoy this with Jeff Scott Soto. Hello, Jeff. How are you today?
Fantastic. It's a brand new year, brand new day, and I'm looking forward to seeing what 2020 is going to bring us all.
Yeah, it's starting off well, and I gotta say, getting this new album, Sons of Apollo, finished. I mean, you just got off the road with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and you also had your Soto album, Origami, earlier in 2019. I mean, you had a busy year.
I would have to say it's been a busy 2 years, actually going on year number 3. I was and that was when we recorded the first Sons of Apollo record. Once I was done with that, I dove straight into a solo album that was due with another label that I've been working with for a long time, and then literally finished that, and I had to do another album with another group that I've been working with for the past 12 years that was also due. And it was certainly, especially creatively, it was one of the toughest times for me, because it's already hard enough to come up with the material and lyrics and be as creative as you need to be to make something as good as it should be. And so now to do 3 in a row like that, for a guitar player or a drummer or just a musician in general, it's easier for them to kind of adapt to a style and kind of lay down their parts. For a singer, you're dealing with more of the driving force of whether it's the melodies or the actual lyrics and themes, and that's a lot tougher, especially when you're kind of running out of subjects to write about.
Right.
So that was tough. And then obviously 2018 was when we embarked on a really long tour with Sons of Apollo, and basically I was on the road between them and Trans-Siberian Orchestra. It was 9 months out of the year I was gone. And as you said, going into 2019, it started all over again. I wrapped the Soto album, we did the Soto tour, and then I came home and we dove straight into the new Sons of Apollo record. And to add to that, I literally just finished the TSO tour. I had 2 days off at home, and I'm midway to my another new solo album that I have to wrap all my vocals before we start rehearsals for the new Sons tour next week.
Good grief.
It's the craziest time of my life and career. In a way, I kind of like it because it forces me, obviously it's forcing me to be creative, but I kind of like being in the pressure cooker of, you got to get it done. And it puts me in another place than if I just had the time, I don't feel like doing it today, I'm going to go to the beach today. It puts me in that pressure cooker, and I kind of need and want that when I'm creating.
Yeah, I can see that. The pressure of the deadline kind of spurs you forward.
Right.
You and I did a written interview back right after Psychotic Symphony came out, and you mentioned at the time, you're like, I'm going to be busy through 2021. And it looks like you were exactly right.
Right. Yeah. I couldn't be more right, because based on the album, the new Sons album coming out next week, and between the tour and finishing all my other things that I do in between, it will be another full year. And I'm getting inquiries to do this and that and the other, and I'm telling people they almost don't believe me when I say, guys, I'm literally slammed until next year, because I'm doing stuff that's going to lead into TSO again this year, and that's my whole year.
Yeah, I can see it. Now, with, all of you have busy schedules in Sons of Apollo. How much work, did you have to do a lot of the work separately, which thank goodness due to technology now you can do it that way, but, how much was shipping and busting in tracks and sharing things electronically versus how often did you guys convene in a room together to work on ideas and work on the album?
Well, for this album, it was certainly more. It was more everybody doing it on their own than the first album. Sadly, I wasn't available to be part of the songwriting, and I'm not really much of a contributor to the music end, especially a band like Sons of Apollo. I would kind of feel stupid to say, "Hey guys, why don't you try this?"
Right.
They pretty much know what's necessary for our branding and the kind of stuff that we're doing. And I might have creative ideas, but for the most part, I don't want to be another chef in the kitchen. I know with this band and these guys, it's best that I just kind of lay back and let them come up with the sound that's necessary for this band. And the great thing about that, and it's one of the things that everybody was worried about me being part of a prog, quote-unquote, band, every time I'm singing, for the most part, there's maybe a few sections where I have to do a little arithmetic and the timing and everything, the time signatures. But for the most part, when it's the singing parts, I'm always on the straight end.
Right.
They do all the crazy kitchen sink stuff in between my singing, and they pretty much lay down the groove and they lay down the established areas where I'm singing, and they keep it pretty straight. That's what makes my job easier in this band, is when they truly establish where they want me to sing and what sections I will be singing on. There's not really much guesswork.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I've heard the album and it's fantastic, and it's so full of like prog goodness, but yeah, actually a lot of the songs check in or only around 5 minutes or so. Was that a conscious decision on their part to kind of distill it down? I mean, of course there's longer numbers, but...
Not really.
Okay.
We've been doing this and they've been doing this for so long. They kind of know naturally where things should land, and unless we're doing a concept album where it's like The Wall, where you just have more orchestrations and more open air things, for the most part, they naturally write songs with the idea of let's get the core pieces where they need to be, and then obviously where I'm singing, that's going to be the bulk of the song itself. And so from that, they don't have to really say, well, that's too long, that's too short, that's too commercial, that's too whatever. They basically just write how it feels good to them. Also write with in mind, this is where the vocals are going to go, this is where the vocals should say, this is where they should stop, etc. Think about, this doesn't really sound like it's gonna be on hit radio, top 40 radio. They literally just go in. We're making this band as much as we possibly can that appeases us and appeals to what we do and how we do it before we start thinking about all the other factors of trying to get radio, trying to appeal to this, and all of that goes out the window, because when it comes down to it, if you start thinking too much about that stuff, you're just going to homogenize the ideal of what you're trying to come across with.
Sure. And the roster of this band, your audience is going to be comprised of people who are expecting all of you to be yourselves, because you've all got a strong fan base, everybody in that band. So, right. Yeah. Now, when you, and that's
the best part about this, is we can draw on pretty much our individual fan bases. I mean, there's a lot of my fan base, especially the melodic rock side, where I'm singing cleaner, singing more like a Steve Perry kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They're going to hate Sons of Apollo. But to be honest, it's surprisingly crossing over to a lot of my audience. And that's one of the reasons why even Soto, I did Soto before I got Sons of Apollo, but now Soto truly kind of fits in place with what I'm doing with Sons of Apollo and everything else. So it's kind of a work in progress to force my fans and force my longtime followers to kind of have an open mind the same way I do about music. I don't like to pigeonhole myself into one style, one sound, and I guess that's to my detriment too, because unless you have the career of a band like Queen, where you can get away with your diversity and they expect you to be as diverse as possible. My fans were kind of like, oh, geez, what are you doing now? You're doing a funk polka country album, and now you're doing a prog heavy metal rock album. I pretty much reprogrammed them to have open minds that I'm not one or the other singer. I'm pretty much all of the above. I'm kind of like the questionnaire where you get the all of the above.
Yeah.
Option.
And that's a brave move, and it takes time. You can't just do that over the course of one album. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was a huge work in progress in the beginning stages of my career, because my first outings were with Yngwie Malmsteen, and imagine trying to kind of achieve more out of that mold than people were wanting me to go out of.
Right.
So that was the toughest time. And now after 35 years, I pretty much established the fact that you can't put me in the corner of any particular style or genre.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, you've done such diverse stuff now, but yeah, in 1985, you were just the I Am a Viking guy, where you had that kind of stuff.
And for the first 5 years of my career, I was the guitar player singer. I mean, after Inve, I was doing records with so many guitar players as their singer, where their name was the actual marquee of the product, and that was a tough one to get out of too. I didn't want people to see me as, or every guitar player that was coming up in the shred world, to say, I want Jeff Scott Soto because he started with the master. You know, that was a tough one, and I my entire career has just been a fight, just to show people I've got a little more than that high scream and I'll see the light tonight.
Sure, absolutely. Now, as a singer, how do you quote unquote hear a song? Like, are you thinking, like, say with Sons of Apollo, when they present the stuff to you, are you hearing like, okay, you know, here it goes from E minor to G, or are you basically just unconscious of that and just working a melody that works to your ears?
Yeah, as I've grown as a writer, contributor, creator, producer, whatever you want to call it, that process, again, it's something you have to learn from experience more so than you can be taught. And so, yeah, for me, I listen to a body of music, and it pretty much dictates where the melody should go, or what I feel the melody should be, or even what the subject matter should be. If you don't hear a heavy proggy song and you write a lyric like, I want to walk with you in the dandelions and look at the fish jumping out of the sea. You know, you listen to a song and it pretty much dictates what it's going to be about. If it's really heavy, it's probably going to be a darker, more serious connotation. And then if you're hearing something that's moody, it just dictates where you're going to go, especially if you're not the actual music writer. And that's where my job has to really concentrate on completing the picture that somebody else created. Send me a melody, or they send me a theme. I have to now finish that theme based on what that music is doing to me, as you know, as a listener, as a co-writer. If you're sitting down writing a song, and if you're writing a ballad, you know exactly what it's going to be about. Or if you're writing a rock tune, you know what it's going to be about when you're creating it. But as a lyricist, you have to listen to it, absorb it, and kind of put you in that place. And that's one of the things thank God I don't have to think about anymore. It's just a natural process for me.
Sure. Now, talk about Stagecraft. I've always been curious about this, and I'm sure it's just a matter of experience, but, you know, when you were young and with Yngwie, he also had, you know, long instrumental passages. Was it difficult to kind of figure out what to do with yourself on stage when the next 3 minutes there's no singing? I mean, that's a random question, but I've always been kind of curious, like, how do you do that? Do you walk off stage? Do you just find something to do, or, you know?
Yeah, but for the most part, especially the very, very beginning of a tour, I mean, I thought I knew that. I thought I remembered that from my days with Inve when we did the first Suns tour, because there were a lot of breaks, and even in musical breaks on stage, do I try to vibe with the music? If it's kind of kooky time signatures going all over the place, would it look stupid me standing there or adding to it visually? So yeah, those are always learning curves based on the project itself. It happens to every band or every tour or any project I'm a part of. You have to kind of feel it out and know what looks appropriate for the actual show itself or that particular band itself. So the beginning of the first tour with Sons of Apollo, yes, there were a few times I'm on the stage going, I'm going to be here for about 2.5 minutes doing what? You guys are taking their turns, doing their own thing. So yeah, you kind of pick it up as it's a work in progress. You pick it up as you go, and you figure out when you're going to stay, when you're going to go. and what you're going to do. It's a funny story if you have the time.
Sure.
It's when I'm asked what's one of the more, I guess, embarrassing moments or Spinal Tap moments of my career. It happened exactly that during an Yngwie show. We were on tour. Talus was opening for us with Billy Sheehan. We were playing a hall where to get to the dressing room, you had to go downstairs. You basically go to the side of the stage. You go downstairs underneath the stage, and you're basically walking under the stage across the room where the audience, they're basically above you, and then you go through a door and you go upstairs to the dressing room. So fair enough. I did that during sound check. I did that going to the stage, et cetera, et cetera. Yngwie would do like a 22 to 25 minute guitar solo. So I thought, I'm not going to sit on the side of the stage. There's nowhere to go. People will see me just sitting here. I'm going to go to the dressing room for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I took off. Did my little course down the stairs underneath the stage, across, upstairs to the dressing room, hung out with Billy and the guys, did a couple of shots, and then I heard my cue. This is the end of Yngwie solo. I better get back. I went backwards, went down the stairs and got to the door. The door was locked.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. I'm pulling and trying to force the door open because I needed to go back under the stage to get back to the stage. There was no one there. There was no security guard. There was no one there with the key. I'm like, what do I do? The panic's kicking in because now I'm hearing the intro of the next song. I'm supposed to be on stage and start singing. So my only option was to go back up the first set of stairs and go through the audience and jump on the stage. Hope that a bouncer's not going to say, what the fuck are you doing? And throw me off. And
right.
That's exactly what I had to do. I'm basically running through this massively standing room only crowd. And they're going, hey, Jeff, they thought it was part of the show. And all I'm doing is trying to get through the stage. Everybody's like trying to shake my hand and pull me in the stage. I jumped up there, and right before my vocal cue of the first line, I got to the microphone.
That's great.
That one of my Spinal Tap moments of exactly, you shouldn't take for granted that just because you have a passage, you have a certain thing that you do, place it, it's the same thing every night, and you have somebody guiding you and dealing with you. Don't assume that it's always going to be the same in every venue, and that's where I learned that lesson.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it worked out where it's actually it probably looked great, but it could have been much worse. Yeah,
I could have missed the first few lines of the song, and Inve, well, what the fuck was that all about? And then it could have turned into that.
Yeah, there's somebody, I can't remember who, a bass player was telling me the story where Yngwie was taking a long solo and he went off stage and ended up locked outside the club, the theater.
Oh, geez.
And he was like, had to go back around to the front, was trying to get in, and the box office wouldn't let him in.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I can't remember who it was, but
you're in the band when you look like everybody else in the audience.
Exactly. He said that the ticket guy was basically like, sure, buddy, whatever. But now, how did, Portnoy is singing underneath you a little bit on Fall to Ascend. Stuff like that. Is that something where it's just kind of a, hey, let's try this out and, oh, it sounds good, let's put it on the album? Or is it something like that sort of planned out? Or how did things like that work?
Well, Portnoy, he loves to sing, and he sang a lot in the Dream Theater. He does a lot of backing vocals and all the other things from Neil Morris and Transatlantic and Flying Colors. He's the bands that he loves all have so many harmonies and so many different textures of vocal layers that turns him on more as much as being a drummer. He loves being a part of the singing process. So on Fall to Ascend, for instance, I had a completely different melody idea that I came up with, and when I demoed it and sent it to the guys, they said, it sounds cool, but I think we can come up with something stronger. Then Mike stepped up and said, I kind of hear like a 2-part harmony, Alice in Chains kind of thing, but more of a moody. Mm-hmm. What I came up with was something more along the lines of what I would have done with maybe Soto or my solo stuff. And not being a massive Alice fan, I wouldn't have thought of that, of what Mike came up with. And when he gave me the initial kind of melody, and then he said, if I sing under, this is how it would kind of layer. And I thought, this is brilliant. I love the way this sounds. And so those kind of things happen organically. If I come up with an idea that it sounds like it could work, but maybe we can come up with more or something stronger, I'm absolutely open to suggestions, because especially a band like this where I don't have the years and the experience of fronting a so-called prog band, I'm adding an element that I feel is going to cross us over but sometimes they will give me ideas that I wouldn't normally come up with that might make it different. Whether it's better or not, it's one thing, but by different, you have another layer, you have another side that you would not have normally come up with that does make it better in the end. And that's something that Mike did in that particular song and other songs. Sometimes I'll come up with something and he'll say, "Oh, I love that melody. It's under you or with you," and that's just how that happens. And so now as I'm writing, I try to think as much as possible of keeping and adding Mike into that mix, because we all know that Bumblefoot's a great singer and he's always going to be there for me as a backing singer, as a backing vocalist. But there's other stuff that Mike is really good with, and it's great to actually have that level of creativity when you're thinking of melodies and writing.
Yeah, and that's one thing there's so many groups of virtuosos and players that I love, but one thing I was really excited about when Sons of Apollo first formed was, in particular, I'm a fan of all you guys in the band and have been for 30 years plus, but Derek Sherinian to me is one of the most unique sounding keyboard players, just the fantastic organic sounds he gets. And Bumblefoot with his fretless guitar, especially those two guys have a unique sound that nobody else is doing.
Right. Yeah. And that's, to me, I pinch myself sometimes. I mean, as you said, as you're a fan of all of us, and we all come from different walks of life, and we've all been doing things for decades, I still get the same was when I was with Journey, where Journey was one of my favorite bands of all time. And when I started fronting them, you kind of remove yourself from the fact that you're a fan, because obviously you have a job to complete. You're standing on stage. You have to fulfill your end and your role in the situation. So you don't think about all the other things that got you to that point of the band and the people that you're playing with. But there will be moments where I'm on stage with Sons, and I'm going, how the hell did I get here? I mean, look who I'm playing with. Look at the level. I've played with some of the greatest guitar players on the planet. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm now with the quintessential one. I can bypass doing an album or a recording or a project with Nuno Bettencourt and Steve Vai and Satriani now, because I've got the guy that all of those guys think is the guy right now.
Right.
And the same thing. I've been such a fan of Portnoy's for so many years, and we never really were close as friends. We only became close the past few years. And I just got to thinking, like, oh my God, I'm in a band with these guys.
Right.
Billy's the same. I've known Billy for 30 some odd years. And it took us that long to finally join forces. And it truly is, it's a blessing as far as I'm concerned to be a part of this whole thing.
Oh yeah. I wrote a review of your new album, and I think one of the things I wrote was, this is the band that other virtuosos would pick for a dream team virtuoso band.
Right.
I mean, it really is.
And that's usually my answer when I'm doing interviews, and it's such a common question when you get to the end. If you could pick any players alive or dead or whatever, who would be your dream band if you could pull one together? And even when I'm doing interviews that have nothing to do with Sons of Apollo, my answer is always Billy Sheehan, Mike Portnoy, Bumblefoot, and Derek Sherinian.
Right.
There you go.
I mean, yeah, it's incredible. Now, you guys are hitting the road here soon. I know you're doing several shows stateside, a couple in Canada, then you're heading over to Europe and South America. You got a busy tour schedule coming up. Now, will you hit more U.S. states on the way back from Brazil and all that, or is that all you have slated for now?
This is what we're hoping. We kind of bit up more than we could chew on the first tour. We put ourselves out there assuming that this five-headed dragon was just going to go out and sell out every venue. And not necessarily us, but the people we were working with, our foreign management and team. I think they expected a lot more, so they booked a lot more. And we were exhausted by the end, and also because it's not that cheap to put a band like this on the road. We don't just go out there with a 5-piece drum kit,
right,
and a couple of synthesizers. This is a world-class band that needs world-class gear and visuals. So it's not cheap. And when you're going out and you're not necessarily packing every house or getting the biggest guarantees, you're not going to be coming home with a lot of coin either. So we bit off a lot more than we could chew on the first tour. So now we're condensing it more to hit the markets that we know we can, that people will travel to, number one, but that we know we can pack out so we can properly promote the record in a more condensed way and bring in that extra level of excitement, that extra level of who are these guys, and from there we can build it to the next level of touring. And we don't want to just go out there for another 7-month tour and hope that people are going to discover us and show up. One of the biggest misconceptions about this band is that it's an automatic that everybody's going to show up because of who's in it. That's absolutely not the case. We are, for all intents and purposes, in the same category as Chickenfoot, a band that was also comprised of so many world-class all-star people. But musically, their stamp musically and their songs had to connect and had to find their own audience. People, Van Halen fans were not coming, Sammy's fans weren't coming just because those guys were in that band. And that's exactly the same thing with us. We're gonna hit it and quit it, and then we're gonna watch and wait for it to grow the right way, organically, instead of just going out there and going, hey, let's just book an arena tour for 7 months and lose our shirts because nobody showed up.
Right. That's a good point. It makes sense. And also, I'm sure it bears pointing out that, I don't know if a lot of music fans understand, a lot of artists are a marquee name, and then they're paying salary to their band members, which I'm assuming is definitely not the case with Sons of Apollo.
No, not at all.
You're all marquee names, so I'm assuming it's a 5-way take or whatever the arrangement is. So
when the take is short,
right?
nobody makes more than the other, and
right.
And believe me, it's kind of it's humanizing when you realize that we might not be earning our potential just yet, and I'm getting the same take home as Billy Sheehan. You know what? It doesn't matter. Let's go out and do it again. Let's just go bust heads and let's keep doing it until we finally crack that egg. Because it's I love that everybody's committed to this. I mean, getting to this band in the beginning because they thought, oh, this will be a one-off. This is, if it sticks to the wall, they continue. If it doesn't, it was just an experiment. We wanted to show people from the get that we were serious about this as a band. This is not just a project or experiment.
And you've also got, I noticed, Tony McAlpine opening for you on at least a few dates.
Yeah. Well, he's doing the U.S. run, and that's exciting too, because this band is basically an offshoot from the project that these guys had with Tony beforehand. That was the PSMS.
Right.
Originally, that was my induction to this whole thing, was me basically stepping in to sing for PSMS. They'd done 2 albums previously instrumentally. They wanted to do a third with vocals, and I would have been the frontman for it. And then they realized they should actually get away from that, because that was more of a jazzy, fusiony progression, prog rock thing. Something was more hard rock and more mixing the classic rock element in, and that's why Bumblefoot was more the candidate for this, more so than Tony would have been. With all due respect to Tony, who's one of the greatest musicians on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like Bumblefoot would work better in this particular situation, which is another reason why they just got away from the whole PSMS thing, and it was a new band. It was a whole new thing.
Oh, yeah. Together. I don't think that's any kind of slight at all to say this player is better suited for this type of music. I mean, that's not a slight on the player. It's just a fact. Right. I mean, I love Eddie Van Halen, but I'm not going to have him play on a reggae song. It's just...
Exactly.
He's not going to fit that.
And that's the bottom line is having Tony on this makes sense, because it's kind of putting us all together, where it started for them with Tony, and now we're going to be traveling and doing shows together. And I'm excited, because I love Tony's playing. I love him as a person, and it's just going to be it's going to be like traveling with your brothers, basically.
Yeah. Well, it looks to be a blast. Now, I hope on just the selfish side that when you guys do get around to doing more U.S. dates, that there's something in the either Nashville or Atlanta area. I'm in Tennessee, where I can get to within a few hours, and so I can see you guys live. But
trust me, brother, I'm hoping for a lot to happen with this band. I'm hoping to cover every corner, every crevice of this country. And it's baby steps. We're doing everything we can to carve our way, and I'd love for us to get to that point where we can play everywhere where everyone is expecting us to play.
Okay, well, you're doing it the right way. The music first. The music's fantastic. I think this album is a step up from the debut, if that's possible. I love both, but I see the maturity and growth, and I think that's, it's to be expected. You guys know each other now and know each other's strengths and quirks and that kind of thing, and what works together.
Right.
So I see the growth there, and I was looking for it, and I was pleasantly surprised that, yes, okay, this is what I was expecting. They're gelling better now. Yeah. So I'm pleased with it, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from you guys ongoing.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well, Jeff, I certainly appreciate you taking the time, and I know you've got a busy day ahead of you, so I'm going to let you run. But it's been a blast, and I'm looking forward to catching you guys on the road in the near future.
Right on, man. Thank you so much for doing this with me and helping us with our cause here.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine, Jeff. Thanks again.
All right, brother.
All right. Bye-bye.
All the best.